Wouldn't you like to write a Christmas letter where you could be really honest? Sometimes it's hard to wish people a Merry Christmas when we're having a messy Christmas. Some of you have heard me tell this story before. Years ago when I lived in England, I attended an installation ceremony for a new district chairman in the British Methodist Church. That's a position between our district superintendent and our bishop. So a very important position. And a lot of leaders in the district came to speak, give well wishes, and offer advice. I don't remember anything people said except for the words of one retired pastor who got up to share a fable. It went like this. A little bird was shivering in the winter cold. Frozen and unable to fly, it lay down on the road to die. Aw, it's a sad story. But along came a cow that stood over the bird and covered it in a warm, gooey substance. Ew. Well, that sounds like insult to injury, except for the fact that the manure actually warmed up the little bird. It revived and started to sing. And then along came a cat who heard the bird chirping from within the manure pile, dug in, took out the bird, and ate the bird. Yuck. The pastor told that story, and then he said, there are three morals to this story. Number one, those who mess on you in life are not always your enemies. Number two, those who pull you out of the mess are not always your friends. And number three, if you find yourself in a mess and you're happy, just keep quiet. I don't know what it says about me that that's the one thing I remember from that day. But when it comes to that third moral, I find a lot of relevance to our world today because there are many people, when it comes to dealing with folks who are in a mess in life, they would be a lot happier if those who are in the mess would just keep quiet. There are a lot of folks who say that the hype of the news media over issues of racial violence have actually contributed to the problem because of all the attention that's given to it. It has made matters worse, that it would be better if they would just keep quiet. There's some people who think that way about gun violence. We had another issue at a school in Michigan this week. They say it's made worse because of all the attention. It'd get better if we just keep quiet. How many of us feel uncomfortable when we pass a panhandler on the sidewalk or drive by somebody asking for money at an intersection and feel like, gosh, if only our city would do something to remove these people, life would be a lot happier, especially at Christmas time, if we just didn't have to deal with people in such messy places. Christmas of all times is when we want to get away from the messiness of the world. We want to retreat from that. We put twinkling lights on the shrubs and the trees outside and garlands on the banister, and we play Christmas music to get away from the messiness of the rest of the year. We do that with the Christmas story. We kind of sanitize the Christmas story. We make it into this beautiful, wonderful, tender scene. Mary and Joseph solidly devoted to each other, having their baby in a stable, placing the infant Jesus in this beautiful wooden manger that's clean and neat. In fact, we even call it a creche. We don't call it a feeding trough. We call it a creche. And Jesus is surrounded by well-groomed animals and shepherds with starlight streaming down. And then as if that's not enough, we added a little boy to the stable scene, tapping on his drum. Where did we get the idea that a little boy with a drum is going to add to serenity? That alone ought to tell us this is not real. And it's not. Remember how the Christmas story begins with Joseph learning the news that Mary, to whom he is engaged, betrothed, is expecting a child, and he's contemplating divorce. Now, yes, they were engaged, but in that day and time, that was a legal covenant. To break off an engagement was very similar to our starting divorce proceedings today, just without all the lawyers involved. Christmas begins in the emptiness and the pain of many modern households, with the spouse sitting at a table waiting for a husband or wife to get home to say the words, "I want a divorce." Not real tender. And then let's think about this place where Jesus was born. We call it a creche, but it was a feeding trough. It had cow slobber on it. There wasn't a lot of beauty about it. Could that have been a place where Mary wanted to have her baby? We picture Mary tenderly holding Jesus, but let's think about the agony of labor. Look at this picture. That is Mary delivering the baby in a stable. It is a place of pain and agony with Jesus delivered in the midst of filth. Why? Because they were homeless. The gospel wants to make that point very clear. They had no other place to go. Jesus was born in homelessness. And then, as if this isn't enough, let's bring Herod into the picture. Not far away in Jerusalem, there is Herod raging away. Herod was half Jewish. He was given his authority by the Roman Empire in order to provide peace over his region, the region of Judea. The Romans allowed him to use the title king for himself. Herod was a guy who loved power, but he used his power for himself, and he was insanely jealous and fearful of anybody who would take his power. He had his wife executed, his mother executed, and 3 of his sons executed because of his fear and insecurity. And yet, because of his Jewish faith, he wouldn't eat pork. That's why the emperor in Rome said of Herod one time, it's safer to be one of his pigs than to be a member of his family. An insecure leader who becomes threatened is a threat to everyone around that leader. That's why when Herod learned that a king of the Jews had been born in his province, it says, when King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him, and for good reason. Because when Herod ascertained that Jesus was born in Bethlehem, what did he do? He ordered the execution of all male babies in Bethlehem. Genocide, murder, injustice. When we tenderize the Christmas story, we make it some neat, tidy tale. In order to soothe the hurts of life, we not only depart from the reality of the story, we depart from the reality of our own lives. Deep down, we know that when we turn Christmas into a warm, fuzzy experience in order to get away from the hurts of life, it doesn't work. If you don't believe me, go to somebody you know who's gone through a divorce recently or lost a loved one. or lost their job or gone through some other pain or hardship and ask them the question, what's the hardest month for you? What do you think they will say? December. Right now. No, when we try to turn Christmas into this sweet, tender thing, we end up making Christmas harder for a lot of people. But don't think I'm here to advocate for skipping Christmas. I'm not going to become a crank. I just want to advocate for the real story. I want to advocate for the Christmas that includes divorce, that includes pain and agony, that includes homelessness, that includes injustice, that even includes killing, because that's the world we live in. And when we include those elements in the Christmas story, we say to people who feel that their painful realities exclude them from the Christmas of the rest of the world, that just the opposite is true. That their pain and what they're going through is the reason we have Christmas in the first place. If you really want to meet Christ, then you got to go to messy places. Malcolm Muggeridge was a British journalist who was an avowed atheist and quite a womanizer. He came to faith because of watching Mother Teresa in one of the messiest places on earth, ministering to the poor in the slums of Calcutta. Watching Mother Teresa, he was converted. He would later write about her. It's impossible to be with her, to listen to her, to observe what she's doing and how she's doing it without being in some degree converted. Her total devotion to Christ, her conviction that everyone must be treated, helped, and loved as if he were Christ himself, her simple life lived according to the gospel, and her joy in receiving the sacraments. None of this can be ignored. There's no book that I have read, no speech I've heard, or divine service I have attended. There's no human relationship or transcendental experience that has brought me closer to Christ or made me more aware of what the incarnation means and what is demanded of us. In a messy place, Malcolm Muggeridge found Christ. He found Christ in a woman who was willing to follow Jesus into a messy place. And that story points to the very power of the gospel, the power of the Christmas story. That God is willing to meet us in messy places. No other religion proclaims that truth. That's the power of what we believe. But there's even a greater power. Yes, God will give us company in our messy places. Yes, God even has the power to pull us out of our messes. But the even greater truth of this story is that God can redeem our messes. I was reading something the other day by Philip Yancey. He was referencing the story of Joni Eareckson, the teenager who was young, athletic, and became a quadriplegic after a diving accident. It led her to experience anger, severe depression, suicidal thoughts, and religious doubts. She had been a very strong Christian, and she just believed that if you pray hard enough, if you have a strong enough faith, God will do what you need. And she prayed for God to heal her, for God to repair her injury, to allow her to walk again, to take her out of that mess. And it didn't happen. But what changed for her was when she discovered that God wanted to redeem her mess and make of her a prophet to other people with disabilities, to be an encouragement and a hope to them. And she did. She went on to write 40 books. Yancey tells about Joni Eareckson, and then he writes this sentence: pain redeemed is more impressive than pain removed. Oh boy, I had to push back from my desk for a moment and just absorb that one. Pain redeemed is more impressive than pain removed. I believe there's somebody listening right now who needs to hear that today. I believe there's somebody listening right now who is in a messy place in life, and you've been praying fervently for God to get you out of your mess, for God to just change the mess, make it go away, and your prayer is not being answered, and you wonder why, and you wonder what's wrong with you. But what if God wants to redeem your pain and to use you to bring light and hope to other people? Now that is a light that never dims. In fact, I want to pause before closing the sermon and just pray for you right now. I want to pray for everyone who feels like, I'm just in a messy place right now. I'm in a place where I don't feel like I can really write the Christmas letter I would if I could. The one that's just gut-wrenchingly honest. No, I don't feel like wishing anybody a Merry Christmas. It's a messy Christmas for me. And I know there are a lot of people going through that. Just the other day, I ran into a woman in the hallways of the church. Her husband died not quite 2 years ago, and she had surgery recently. And I asked how she was doing, and I could tell by the way she hesitated to answer that she was wondering, now, in just what respect are you asking? And when she realized I was referring to the surgery, she said, oh, well, I'm doing really well. I'm doing fine. Things are going okay, and I'm getting along well. Then she stopped and with a very different tone said, but I am entering a really hard time right now. I think that's true for a lot of people. If that's true for you, I want to say a prayer, and I invite you just to place your hands open like this. And you just might pray these words after me and let them be your prayer today. Let us pray. Lord, please redeem my pain. Help me believe that just because you don't change my painful reality, you aren't working somehow to bring a change I need. Help me to trust that you are still good even when I feel bad. And use me to do good, not because I feel good, but because I want to feel better. I pray this in the name of a baby born in a messy place who died to redeem all the pain of the world. Jesus, my Lord. Amen. Well, in this series, we're looking at themes that pop up throughout the Christmas story and the Gospels and the prophecies of the Old Testament. That when you go through many of these scriptures, you just see certain things that stand out and point to a light that never dims. And we want to have a missional focus because all of these themes represent God's great mission. Today, we're thinking about God's mission to help people in messy places. Recently, we emphasized an outreach to the Afghanistan families who have been staying at Camp Atterbury. They are now being resettled, being relocated in places. But there are still 4,000 families they hope to have relocated by the end of this month. It takes $5,000 to support one family for 90 days. And during that 90 days, a lot of help is given by volunteer teams to begin that resettlement process of helping them enter into and integrate into society. Now, support, of course, will be ongoing after the 90 days, but we want to support, as a congregation, at least 10 families. And you can do that by making a gift to the church if you would like to leave a special mission gift this Christmas. I hope you'll think about doing that every year. Beyond my usual giving to the church, I look at any extra income I've received and think about what can I do as a special gift in different places. And in a few days, I'll be sitting down to do that, and we'll include support to our Afghan families. Now, a hands-on way to help our families beyond this manner is through the donation of items that are needed. Maria Blake in our church is leading a team to help continue collecting items, and you can find out more about that through our stluke'sumc.com/serve page. Now, the Exodus Refugee Immigration Incorporated is the organization helping with the resettlement. They're going to be training volunteers to work with families directly in assisting with what they have identified as 35 different areas of need for families to settle into new communities. Some of these include things like helping folks learn to do their own food shopping, getting kids settled in schools, connection to language instruction, getting job training. You'll see a website on the screen. I invite you to copy that website down, because that's where you can go if you would like to find out more about being one of the volunteers on a resettlement team to help families directly. Just go to that website and you can learn how to plug in to help families who have been through a messy, messy year. Now, next week, our focus is going to be on children. And of course, in St. Luke's every year, we have an important ministry in December called Christmas Angels, our Angel Tree Ministry. We buy Christmas gifts for families in our community. We, of course, are doing that again this year. And I want you to hear from a member of St. Luke's who talks about what this ministry has meant to her and her family. Let's take a look.
Angel Tree is not just an event for me and my family, it's a mission. 12 years ago, during Live Nativity, we met 4 other St. Luke's families and decided to go together to sponsor a family for the Angel Tree Project. Every year since then, 12 years, we've come together and have had the opportunity to choose children and families to shop for. Early on, we would take the gifts directly to the families' homes. It then shifted to families coming to the church to shop for items in the Great Hall, and now to the place where the gifts are brought to the church, wrapped, and then the gifts make their way to a child whose parent needed help sharing joy on Christmas Day. And while St. Luke's is able to serve over 300 children every year, what I've learned is that it's not just the families we shop for that receive gifts. My family, and yours, when you sign up to serve, receives the gift of blessing someone else, of sharing all the abundance and blessings that God has given us with the children and parents who really need it. This gift doesn't stop giving. It shapes our faith, but also the faith of our children long after the Christmas tree has been taken down. Now my daughters, who are high school and college age, remind me, hey Mom, it's time to call our friends for the Angel Tree. It's no longer something I want them to do. Now it's something our family and friends must do together. It's part of our holiday tradition. It has created long-lasting relationships and memories with those we shop with and created a special place in our hearts. And it's my prayer that this becomes more than an event, but for a mission and tradition for your family too.
Now again, this is another way that we can help people in messy places. Our emphasis will be next Sunday on children, but we want to start making that response now. You'll see a table in the narthex where you can stop by and help. Come by the church office, call the church office if you would like to find out more ways to be a part of helping with our Angel Tree ministry this year. The Christmas story points to an important truth about messy places. Messy places are those where God either wants to meet us or send us. And most of the time, it's both. Maybe your life is not in a messy place today. Maybe your life is in a comfortable place. You're doing okay. Great. But you might be saying, I'd like to feel more of God in my life. I'd like to feel closer to God. If you really want to do that, yeah, the worship services are wonderful. Holding a candle on Christmas Eve is certainly a tender experience. But if you really want to experience God, go invest yourself in a messy place in the world. So I invite you to stand as we join together in our closing song this morning. It came upon a midnight clear. You'll notice how there are beautiful, tender references in this story. Angels bending near the earth, peaceful wings unfurled. But I want you to notice some other words like painful steps and slow. All the weary world beneath life's crushing load. This is a hymn that captures all the beauty and the hope that we want to feel and experience at Christmas in the reality of the messiness of our world. Let us sing.